Kay's actually written another question which follows on quite neatly from what we've discussed so far. Her second question is, why are men and women not permitted to pray together in a mosque? And then she goes on to ask, just like they would do in a church and also at worship places of other faiths and religions. So why is a mosque a place where men and women are segregated when it comes to prayer? Jahangir Sir.
Well, Hazrat Khalifa al-Abi, the fourth Khalifa of our Jamaat, has answered this question many times. And the answer is a very simple one, actually. The thing is that in Islam, we pray in a very specific fashion. Our daily prayers comprise prostrations. And these are positions which are, of course, delicate in the sense that they could attract unwanted attentions. If, for example, women and men were praying together, one could only imagine what the situation would be like if one would be, for example, a man would be surrounded by ladies, praying with him. And also remember that in the Islamic prayer, we stand shoulder to shoulder. So it's very important, it's stressed even to increase brotherhood. So in such a setting, it's obviously very important to have the sexes separated, and that they cannot see each other ideally. And if it can't be avoided, then the ladies are allowed to see the men praying, but not the other way around, because as Huzur had explained, in Islam we trust women more than we trust the men. And we can trust that the ladies will still be able to keep their minds on God and on godly things, godly thoughts, even if they see men in front of them praying, and they won't be distracted. But we can't vouch for men in that respect.
So women are of stronger character, yes, when it comes to that particular aspect. It's interesting, though. I think in Kay's question, various issues can be raised about this whole thing about gender separation. And, even in the early days of Islam, when there were no mosques, men and women, if one is talking about a large space, if a mosque isn't available, as you've said, Jahangir, some men would pray in front and the women would pray behind, and the mosque eases that burden. But even if you look at other faiths, you take Sikh temples, for example, you will see men and women sitting on separate sides. Even within the Christian faith, if you look at the purity of their faiths, you look at monasteries, for example, or convents. Yeah, but the nuns and monks are kept separate. They practice and worship separately to allow for better focus. So this isn't just something which is sort of placed in Islam.
It has to do with human nature, as Abdullah Khan Sahib had said, and Dr. Zaid Khan Sahib had picked up on that. It's all to do with human nature, and human nature doesn't change. So we shouldn't be surprised to see the same, kind of moral teachings regarding these aspects of religious life within all the different religions on earth.
Indeed, there's limitations. A friend of mine once raised this issue as well, and he said, well, we don't have gender, segregation of any kind here in the West. And instantly it hit me. I said, well, what about changing rooms? I said the level may be different compared to other things, but even here in the West, this kind of recognition that men and women are different is quite commonplace, I'd say. It's evident in society.
It is, it certainly is. There has to be that barrier.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's total chaos and total breakdown. And Islam has put these barriers in place for a certain reason. And that is why we see order in that society. But I think one other aspect coming from there that comes to my mind, and it's not only in the Western world that we see this problem of social breakdown, but perhaps if we look at, unfortunately, India at the moment, we find that they are going towards the same route as the Western world has. And it brings to mind the prophetic warning of the promised Messiah, Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam, who wrote on this subject of the intermingling of the sexes and the breakdown of this barrier. And he warned the Hindus that don't go down this route, otherwise this will be your ruin. And Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam said this 100 years ago. Unfortunately, we see that the society there has started to go down this route, in that their clothing has become westernized and their nudity has increased, and the social ills that we find here will become a pattern of that society, unfortunately. And had they heeded the words of the reformer and the Mahdi of the time, this perhaps would not have happened.
I'd like to add a point here. And Jahangir Sahib will be placing that Hazrat Masih Maud has written in Lecture Lahore regarding this subject. We don't, in Islam, we don't want our ladies to become commodities. And this is very important aspect, that ladies are held in high esteem in Islamic society. So they should not be turning into commodities for sale. And they should not be demonstrated in a way that you become attracted to buy them or purchase them, to have them. I would like to say that when you have a beautiful, expensive thing and you make a gift to someone, you wrap it. Mm-hmm. That wrapping is very important. Mm-hmm. That shows that the thing which you are giving as a gift is very expensive to you. Mm-hmm. So wrapping, if that is accepted internationally, mm-hmm. I think veil is nothing to be scared of.
Yes, I actually have the reference of what Dr. Zaid Khan Sahib had mentioned, and which Abul Sahib just reminded me about here. The Prophet Muhammad actually said in his lecture Lahore, and this he was actually addressing the Arya Samaj, who had started to show laxity. You know, they were getting a bit relaxed in their.
The Arya Samaj, for the benefit of our viewers, who are the Hindu.
Yes, there were a group of Hindus in India, and they had started to become a bit relaxed, you know, in the segregation matters. Mm-hmm. And he told them, he said, if you usher in freedom today, you will sow a poisonous seed in your culture. These are difficult times. Even if it was not needed before, he said that, you know, as a hypothetical statement, he said the veil is essential now, because this is the last era of mankind, and the earth is full of vice, debauchery, and drunkenness. Hearts are filled with atheism and are devoid of respect for divine commandments. Tongues are so loquacious and lectures are loaded with logic and philosophy, but the hearts are empty of spirituality. At such a time, it would be a folly, he said, it's a folly to expose your helpless sheep to the mercy of wolves. So he said, please, by all means, you must keep some kind of modesty in your garments, and you should have some kind of segregation as well in your meetings. Otherwise, you will sow this, you know, poisonous seed in your culture.
Gentlemen, Jazakallah for answering these questions, and I hope, Kay, we've answered some of the questions you've raised. And in summary, it's the veil in itself is a reflection of the nobility and the high status with which women are respected and regarded within the Islamic faith. But if there are further questions you have from the answers you've heard, please do email in. And the email, once again, for Kay and indeed all our viewers, is faithmatters@mta.tv. That's faithmatters, one word, @mta.tv. And for those of you looking to use the fax, it's 44 for the UK, 208 687 8037.